Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we are going to talk about what happens when we listen to the voice inside that calls us to adventure and immerse ourselves in different cultures. That is exactly what our guest has done over the course of his lifetime, and what you are about to hear is guaranteed to expand your awareness. Vincent Roazzi Jr. is our guest, and he's here to share how cultural immersion has expanded his consciousness. Vincent grew up in the Northeast in what most of us would consider a normal upbringing, following the typical progression, going to school, graduating college, and getting a job. Yet something awoke inside of him throughout that process that led to a decision that changed everything. Vince has since immersed himself in a variety of cultures, from New York to Miami, from the Kingdom of Bhutan to Bali. He even spent 3 months living with a tribe in the jungles of the Amazon. He is currently following his passion for photography and lives in Austin, Texas, which has a culture of its own. I am so excited to share this story with you all. Vincent, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited. So you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and it was going to be like a 10, 15-minute intro call. We ended up on the phone for 2 hours. And I took pages and pages of notes, and oh man, I love your story, and I can talk to you for hours and hours and hours. But
Same, man. I really enjoyed that conversation.
it was great. So just to kind of kick things off here, I wanted to just start with this idea of cultural immersion. So before we even share your story and kind of the journey that you've taken, can you just kind of talk to us about what cultural immersion means to you?
Yes. So I knew you were going to ask this question, and I was kind of like, okay, let me look up immersion, because we were talking about how you like the derivative of words, understanding the definition
Yeah.
of things. It kind of opens up your mind to like, oh, okay, I never really paid attention to this before. And what it said was, there was one of the definitions was to immerse into a liquid. And I kind of imagine, oh, okay, that actually does make sense for cultural immersion. Uh, so immersing yourself in the liquid being culture.
Yeah.
So kind of like completely taking you out of or hijacking all of your senses of, your taste, your smell, sound, everything that you see is completely enveloped in whatever this culture is. And for me, that's what it means. And when you're in like a place like, let's say, Vietnam, and you're tasting a banh mi that's incredible, you've never tasted it like this before, with like this perfect pate, and then the smell of like that weird cabbage in the markets, and then scooters everywhere buzzing around you, and you're just kind of completely like in shock almost. But that's an awesome feeling. Like, I love that. I've been chasing that my whole life.
Yes. I love it.
Is that good? Cultural immersion? Does that
Yeah,
sound
I
like?
mean, you did. It was because, when I was thinking about kind of what we were going to talk about today after that epic conversation that we had, I just was looking through my notes, and the words cultural immersion just completely popped out at me. And I mean, because this is not about
Mm,
like, taking a tourist trip to a place and observing what's going on. Immersion is about
right.
really getting into that life and being part of the culture, not just going to witness it. And that, I think, is what's really grabbed me about what you've done over the course of your journey. So let's go there. If you would, I'd love to just kind of hear an overview of sort of your early journey and sort of this build up to this decision that you made to travel.
Yeah, so I'll kind of keep that theme in mind as we go here, because that's the type of travel that really is what I seek, is this kind of the full immersion, more than like a week,
Yeah.
drinking pina coladas or something,
Right.
which is
Right.
cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It has its place.
Um, yeah. But when did the journey to kind of like take that deeper leap? I think actually, I was thinking, when did this happen? And I've always wanted to do something like that. To just, I think, ever since I saw The Beach. You ever see The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so he like goes to Thailand, and when I was a kid and I saw that movie, I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that at some point in my life. I'm gonna backpack around Thailand and do what this guy did. It just seemed exactly like what I was meant to do in my life. But there was always an excuse for like not doing these things. And after college, there was a big fork in the road. My buddy and I were going to teach English abroad. He was going to go to China and I was going to go to Thailand. And we were going to do it for a year. It was going to be the first big trip. So we had all the plans ready, and at the same time, like all my friends are moving to New York, and maybe I was interested in a girl, and I wanted to get a job and all these things. And so I actually didn't go. And so I think that's actually the beginning of that journey, was actually not taking the journey and completely kind of like putting it on hold for what was like 10 years, because I didn't actually
Yeah.
start traveling until I was 30, which is crazy because I always wanted to do it. So he went to China, never came back. He like got a job working in marketing for Porsche, and like I did like the typical, went to New York, tried to get a job, trying to date this girl, didn't work out, try to get another job, try to do a different girl. It's just like the same thing over and over. But that's where I met Matt, who you've also interviewed.
Yes. Matt DeSantis, episode 31.
Right. Another
Amazing.
episode. Yeah. So he's actually like way further out there than I am. And he had this dream of going to Bhutan before we even ever held a camera. I'm a photographer. He also loves photography. Before that, we were like talking about making a documentary in Bhutan and making photos and films. So he actually made that happen. He lived there, and I was working in a tech company, sitting at my desk, and I get a email message from him saying, "Hey, do you want to come to Bhutan for a year and help me launch a travel company?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. Like, of course,
Yes.
I'll do it." He's like, "But you got to be here in 2 weeks because your visa won't work otherwise."
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, oh shit, what am I like?
Yeah.
Like I don't even know where this place is. First of all, like I had to Google Bhutan
Yeah.
and see where it was on a map, and
Yeah.
it's, as you know, probably a small country sandwiched between India and
Yep.
China.
Yep.
Uh, so in the Himalayas. So this place is like super remote, but I really wanted to go. This was the force that I needed to drop all those excuses that I had in the past and do it. First, I called my parents. I said, "Hey, I know this sounds a little crazy,
Yeah.
but my friend Matt, who invited me to go for a year to this country. They're like, where is it? I don't really know, uh, but that's kind of how it started. I had to tell my boss that I was quitting and that I was going to leave in 2 weeks. He thought I was crazy, actually, that guy. But my parents were really supportive, and so that was there was a lot of other things I had to do, but buy my flight, all this other stuff. But basically, like within 2 weeks, I was living in a year in a very, very remote country.
I love this. And I know that a lot happened over there, and that I know that was
Yeah.
a total game changer for you. I remember that conversation. But um I wanted to just, there's a few things I want to like unpack with everything that we just talked about, because that like this podcast is about kind of listening to that voice that calls us to adventure, and also kind of exploring those fears and doubts that prevent us from crossing that threshold and following that voice, right? And
Mm,
so what's so cool is you did hear that voice early on.
a long time. Yeah.
And I think that, part of the lesson there was that you didn't listen to the voice. And then 10 years later,
Right.
I'm sure that the fact that you didn't listen to the voice kind of weighed in, but now you're in this place where you have 2 weeks to make a decision.
I had like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Like,
because you had 2 weeks to get there. So I'm just curious, like, if you could kinda talk real briefly about just, because you said you watched The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you said, "That's something I'm
yeah,
gonna do at some point," but there was always an excuse not to. So I wonder if we could just touch on some of those fears and the doubts and how those
yeah.
kind of played into the overall story.
Yeah, and I love that, man, because the mission of your podcast is to get that person that was me to take that trip to teach that English year in Thailand. I
Yeah.
should have I should have done that. At the same time, like I met Matt and went to
Yep.
Bhutan and everything, and so it worked out anyway. But I wish I could have talked to myself back then, about what was going on. And the fears are like the same exact fears actually that I have currently on taking a trip. It's like, oh, I have a dog now. Like, like I have all these responsibilities. I have this photography business and I have clients to serve. Um, so, and there's just like this buildup of things that seem kind of insurmountable. Like you don't think you can kind of do, live for a year in another
Yeah.
country or something like that.
Yeah.
But once I was faced with that situation where I had to make a decision in 10 minutes, it was easy. I was like, okay, I'll just, quit my job and then well, I'll have to forget about whatever, dream I was chasing here. And so it's interesting, like the same, like it even happened this year, trying to go on this road trip for a few months in the US. It was very difficult for me to not make money, or the thought of like losing my clients. What am I going to do with my dog? We
Mhm.
actually brought the dog with us. So, but we did it. Once we did it, it was easy and it was so worth it. It's always the most important thing for me. And I make sure that I do it every 1 or 2 years,
Yeah.
something that big.
And ultimately, it was like a decision that you just made, and then the rest you just figured out. But so
Right,
when
right,
you got
right.
that call from Matt, "Hey, you wanna come to Bhutan?" Like, did you go back to that decision in China? Like, did China come up in your mind when you were making that decision?
No, because that I literally thought about this dream every day. Like there was never a that moment never kind of was in the back of my head. It was always I always wanted to do that and I just never did it. Like I always made the an excuse.
Yeah.
So when I had that call, I mean literally mine was a phone call,
It
so it
was a
makes
phone
it a
call.
lot
Yeah.
makes it a
Legit.
lot easier.
Yeah.
And you have to give the answer yes or no,
Yep.
or you don't, or it's no. So, like, because you're always like, oh, I'll just, maybe next year, you know,
Yeah.
maybe next year turns into 10 years. So, I didn't think about it because I always knew that I was going to do it.
Yeah. What's so cool about it is like there's this like sort of spiral and like we always get these second chances. And I think that
Hmm.
sounds to me like what happened with your experience with China was like, you know, you got another chance and that experience helped shape the next one. And look what's
Right.
unfolded since. So from there, can you take us? I know some profound things happened to you in Bhutan, and I really want to get to the Amazon too. So tell me what happened in Bhutan.
Well, yeah. So for the sake of time and story and to keep things interesting, well, Bhutan, I'll kind of briefly talk about, and we'll talk about the Amazon as well. But Bhutan was that first huge trip.
Yeah.
So it was cultural immersion at the extreme, extreme. The only thing that was not culturally different was that they spoke fluent English,
Mm.
which is actually like a huge help, because you can communicate with their culture a lot easier.
Yep.
You're constantly trying to survive in this new culture, and it's a cult. Bhutan is a culture that uh, the country's main religion is Buddhism,
Mhm.
they don't have the same material desires as the West. There's an extreme Buddhist and spiritual way of life that's constant and that permeates through every conversation that you have. So, you'll be talking with somebody and they'll you kind of feel like they're grounded and rooted into the earth in a way that you haven't, well, that I haven't communicated with people in
Yeah.
the US. So it was like maybe I've met people once in a while like that, but over there it was like everyone
Yeah.
was like this. So it was, after 3 months, 6 months, a year, you kind of start to absorb that culture a little bit. And for me, it was kind of like a rebirth. I got whatever 15, 20 years of caring about like what I wore or like who I was or what my career was or what people thought about me kind of got like stripped down, and I was just this new person kind of wandering the earth. And I kind of felt like I just felt like, I'm gonna from now on I'm going to do what makes me happy, and I'm going to try to maintain this Bhutanese state of mind, like this kind of like they have a very kind of like down to earth mentality.
Yeah.
That place changed me a lot because it was like kind of the first step for me to become who I wanted to be in a way. And so
Yeah.
that's when I dropped everything, tried to become a photographer in New York, slept on couches and things, but I didn't care. It was cool. It was amazing.
One thing that really stuck out in what you said is that you stopped caring what other people think about you. And I'm curious, like when you were in Bhutan, like what was the impetus for that? Was it just, they say that you become the six people that you spend the most time with. Is it because you were with people that had that sort of same mentality? I'm just curious, like how that transition happened for you.
Um, it's interesting because not caring what other people think has a was different then than how it is now. Back then it was because I was removed from society here,
Hmm.
and it was almost like the person that existed here no longer mattered. Like maybe this image that I had to keep up or something like that. Like I really felt like I didn't belong in any circle, and I was just like a person of the world just wandering around.
Hmm.
So what happened with Bhutan is that they kind of put a lot of more emphasis on other parts of life, and you didn't have like a mall, like a really nice mall to like buy clothes. So it's just like you
Yeah.
just don't have it. No one has it. So it doesn't really matter. And when it doesn't matter, you realize, oh, it's kind of nice. Like I'm not spending money on this stuff.
But it's the
It's like,
material stuff. Like, so when you
yeah.
say emphasis on other parts of life, like what are some of the things that are emphasized over what you were used to?
So I guess in the West, we put a lot of emphasis on career status in a way,
Yeah.
your home, the things that you have,
Yeah.
and over there, it's almost like everyone kind of has a similar lifestyle, and so the things that they kind of put more emphasis on was things like family, their existential being of like their past
Yeah.
life and their current life and their future life,
Yeah.
paying homage to the spirit world and maybe people that have passed before, like really meaningful one-on-one connections,
Mm,
because there's less distractions. You're really like just even in a bar social situation, you're really like so close and packed in a tiny room, and you just have to talk.
yeah.
So it's like a campfire scenario
Yeah, I love it.
all the time. Yeah.
It's so funny because I think like what's sort of coming to me is this I'm gonna say comparison void, meaning like
Okay.
no comparison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just sensing like, the way that you just described life over there is comparison a thing over there like it is here?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not as strong. Like,
Yeah.
there's no question about it. It
Yeah.
still exists, and in my experience, it exists in even those tribes in the Amazon. So it's not something that's like, oh, if I just move there, like I won't have to like deal with that anymore. Like,
Cool. I love
you
that.
still deal with it, but it's just like on such a smaller scale.
Yeah. Man,
Um,
that's cool. Like you just made a great point. Like you can't just up and leave. It's not going to just go away, right?
uh, for sure. Yeah. The same. It's funny how like society works like that. You would think that, some of the things wouldn't. I mean, it's amazing that the same patterns of society happen amongst like every circle, no matter how remote the place is.
Oh man, that is
Yeah.
awesome. So, all right. So maybe can we go to the Amazon now and maybe like how that happened? Like
Yeah.
Bhutan was such a game changer for you. How did you get from there to the Amazon?
Okay. So in Bhutan, uh, there's so many good stories from there that we only Matt and I can talk about,
Yeah.
which is great. But we were at this party one time, and it was a great night. But we met this doctor, and or she was a nurse actually, and she was like, "Hey, if you ever want to go to we were talking about travel. If you ever want to go to the Amazon, I know this tribe leader, and you can like stay with him and maybe do photography and things like that." So I was kind of like, "Oh yeah, okay, maybe." And to after living in New York for a year, I realized that I was kind of going back into the New York version of myself.
Okay.
Got the nice jacket now, like nice pair of shoes. So the cultural immersion works both ways.
Okay.
So now I'm
Love it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
now I'm back to being a New Yorker. I've
Okay.
kind of lost my Bhutanese version of myself.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had at least. So I made a promise to myself, and I still have this promise is, every year or 2 years, I'm gonna completely get up and leave again, because I know how important this version of myself is, the potential to grow as a human internally. So that seemed like the next logical move, the Amazon.
Of
Any
course.
any like n- anyone that dreams of like being a National Geographic photographer like has to go there kind of in a way. So for me it was like, you know, I wanted to be like that. And I contacted got the tribe leader. He messaged me on Facebook, which I thought was like kind of bizarre.
That's awesome.
But at this point, I had also had Facebook friends with monks in Bhutan, so this
Yep.
wasn't too abstract. So I was like, all right, I'm chatting with this tribe leader. That's pretty cool, and he has like the most epic garb, for with his tribal garb.
Yeah.
And so he invites me, and I go to. So he said, "Oh, you can teach English." I say, "What about chess?" Because I had been, my dad was a chess teacher, and I was playing chess with a girl in New York, so I was probably trying to impress her a little bit.
Okay.
And so he was like, "That's a great idea." So I come to the Amazon. My goal was to teach English and teach chess, and of course, for me personally, to have another culturally immersive
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So now we're in the Amazon.
This is
I'm gonna
now
fast
I
forward.
just wanna hear about the experience. I mean, so you're in the
Yeah,
Amazon. Can you kinda paint a picture for the
yeah,
tribe and kinda where you're living and what does
yeah.
day-to-day life look like for you?
I did write a story about this, and so it actually kind of reminded me because I even forget what it was like. But I'm gonna fast forward 2 months into the jungle. I'm in a canoe on a river in the Amazon with my host brother, and they are splashing the water to get rid of the piranha because we're about to jump in it and try to go fishing. Like this is how they catch fish. So
Wow.
they like, yeah, this is crazy because this was the scariest thing I've ever done because there's anaconda too in this river. So
Piranha
first
and
it's
anaconda, and you're about to get in.
yeah, and it's like, a brown, dark, murky river, and you're in the middle of the Amazon. So you know that there's some fangled looking creatures there.
Yeah.
And so I asked them, what about the anaconda? They say, don't worry, they're sleeping during the day. They they only attack at night.
Okay.
And I'm like, you know, I don't even like water in the first place. Like I get a little scared of like the ocean. It's probably my biggest fear. But like I know that this is my opportunity to do something and cross that boundary of fear and try to do what they were doing. If they can do it, maybe I can do it. So we go into the water, and this is how they hunt for food that we're eating later that day. Uh, and what they do is they stick their hand into a wall of the riverbank
Okay.
under the water. The fish nest in holes in the
Okay.
riverbank.
Okay.
And basically, you just put your arm in there and pull out the fish. But if you've ever put your hand in like a hole in the river of a mud, it's just like this. It's just like a very scary. You don't know what's in there. Could be a snake. Could
Yeah.
be piranha. You're hoping it's a fish, and yeah, so I actually got to do it and
Oh my
rip out this fish and
God.
hold it above my head and like I'm holding it. And that's what we ate at night. And they would put, like you would eat all the organs except the heart. It was actually delicious. But it was like this whole fish,
Wow.
and it was like your bowl of soup with a big fish laying on top, with like maybe just onion and garlic as a soup base. Uh, and that was amazing. We would eat in the dark, under the huts, um, with the mosquitoes just like mm, I remember the host father, the shaman, he would be constantly doing this with his shirt because of the mosquitoes
Okay.
all day. It was
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
So you had to deal with that. I had to, sleep on a wooden floor with a pillow this big.
Okay.
That's my this is my this is my sleep for the night. And there were bats in my roof. And then you had these ayahuasca ceremonies,
Okay.
and
Yep.
he was the best shaman in that part of the jungle. Um, so I would learn from him about the plants, and I remember one time I walked around with him in his garden, and there's all these tropical plants, and he's pointing to each one, describing the medicinal benefits.
Yeah.
So this one is cures a headache, and actually I found out later it has caffeine in it, and
Wow. Okay.
caffeine can be a headache cure.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that made it so that's like a relatable thing. Here's another one for a stomach ache, and maybe it has maybe something that has a base,
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
reduces like stomach acid, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there were things like this one is for when your child can't walk and is crawling and hasn't learned to walk yet. You make a tea out of this, and he will learn to walk.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And then you have like level 10, the
Yeah.
boss, which is the ayahuasca vine.
Okay.
And that's a very complicated process of making it. And it's actually kind of interesting if you look into like how it's even possible that the tribes discovered it. But it's a combination of two plants, and then they make the ayahuasca, and that is for that's to cure your spiritual
Yep.
self, and to kind of even cure your maybe childhood traumas and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole thing, and I think it's becoming more and more known in the West, in the U.S. More and more people are having that experience, and probably a whole nother podcast at some point
Yeah,
just on that experience. So,
yeah.
so you're teaching chess. Talk
hmm
about that. Like so you brought like a piece of yourself, a piece of your culture to this culture. What was that like?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because before, I was very much about not intruding on another culture, and you
Mhm.
also see missionaries are a major part of the whole world.
Yeah.
Like, even the most remote parts of the jungle, there's like a church, You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
someone showed up with medicine and a church, and it's like uh, you can see how that really changes the religion of the culture.
Yeah.
And so uh, maybe the shaman have now lost their um, knowledge of medicinal properties of plants, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that. That's the last thing I wanted to do because I've been so enriched by their culture. But I thought, you know what, chess is a thing that, you know, is everywhere around the world. It's not too obtrusive or intrusive, sorry. And so, you know, it's something my dad taught. I think it'll be really helpful to them because if I'm going to teach English, I might as well teach chess, you know?
Yes.
And I got a lot out of it as a kid. I always thought it made me a better problem solver. So I did, yeah, I brought chessboards, chess pieces, and we taught under like a coconut tree, uh, you know, in the schoolyard. It's like a
Yeah.
building. I didn't know how to speak Spanish,
Hmm.
so I was like, I, I maybe I have good restaurant Spanish,
Okay.
so
Nice.
I would teach them the like I'm have my iPhone. I'm like, okay, this is the obispo. That's the bishop. Peones is pawns,
Okay.
and then I would teach. I didn't know how to say like how to take the king or
Yeah.
how to like take a piece. So I would say eat it,
Okay.
and then the kids would like they'd be like, "Can I eat this piece?" Like trying to learn the rules. And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you can
Let's
eat
do it.
it." Yeah, and then if they won, they would have eaten the king,
Okay.
and they were like, "I'm eating the king." Like, yeah, eat the king.
I love it.
So yeah, my restaurant Spanish dictated their lesson plans, but eventually, like, it was really interesting to. I've never taught anything like that before, and it was really interesting to see how a culture is so opposite from what I'm used to. The kids could learn so fast and kind of in the same way that we would, and could learn the concept of checkmate, which is actually like really it's really bizarre. Like to win chess, you actually don't eat the king;
Yeah.
you trap it, and it's a
That's right.
submission. So it's kind of like a weird like to teach that. It's kind of like there's no win, there's no goal, there's
Yeah.
no score. It's like I give up,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So teaching that was really difficult. But the same kids I taught were the same kids that my shaman was training to be shaman. And
Okay.
so they're 12 years old taking ayahuasca. And I'm like, dude, what? Like,
Wow.
what was it like? You know? Because I know what it's like for the adults. And there were some people coming in, maybe they had, you know, like an ailment. This was their last final place to cure cancer or something like that. And then this kid is next to me doing it at 12 years old. What did you see? Oh, I saw this elephant and like your head turned into a tiger. And it
Wow.
was awesome. And they're having like a really like fun, joyful, psychedelic trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I
And the
mean, what
adults are going through like this like unwinding and
yeah.
unraveling.
I mean, what just a
Very interesting.
completely different way of life. And this is, I mean,
Yeah.
this is cultural immersion, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it was a difficult one. Yeah,
And just
definitely.
to be you, to be a human being, like in this culture, and then I mean, what's it like to pull yourself out of that culture and then come back? I mean, what is like? I'm imagining like the first couple days, the first couple of weeks of coming back from that experience. What is that like for you?
Well, it's like a mixture of things. It's just like bittersweet, right? Like there's part of me that's like is already so used to seeing like the uniqueness of the world and culture and society and kind of like amazed by it. Um, and amazed by living kind of in you're kind of like living in the moment so much that you bring that over when you come home. But then there's like this other part that I've only recently learned to deal with, and it's like, how do you bring that same awareness or feeling of appreciation to suburban America,
Yeah.
you know, or the city, you know, because it's gonna be very exciting, but after a month, you're like, "Hmm, all my issues are back, all my problems are back, like
Culturally
my
back immersed here.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not like I'm jaded, or like I don't like what is even interesting about this place?
Yeah.
Because and then that's been a journey for me as well, as like kind of doing the opposite, like bringing that person that is so curious about other people when I'm traveling, to curious like about the person at the dog park
Yeah.
in the here in Austin.
Well, and so the curiosity kind of like I want to make sure the one point doesn't get lost in this podcast because we talked about it a lot when you and I spoke, but so much
Mhm,
of your journey was triggered by essentially a career change, right? Where you went from insurance sales and different sorts of jobs until to discovering like a passion that you had for photography and then turning that passion into a potential career change, which you have successfully done. And
mhm.
like that love for photography is part of what's taken you to so many of these different places. Is that fair statement?
Absolutely. Yeah, my I don't know if he's I call him a mentor, but this National Geographic photographer that I've always talked to since I was young. He says the camera is a license for curiosity. So you can
Mhm.
you're allowed to do whatever you want just because you have the camera, and
Yeah.
everyone kind of like agrees with it for some reason. Like, oh, that guy has a camera. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, come on into our culture and like check it out.
One of the things that we talked about was, and maybe in a slightly different context, but just like in your following your passion for photography, um, what you discovered was, I think you made this comment that there's a limit, like when you're just chasing sort of financial success, there's a limit to that. But you made a comment that when you really go after what you're passionate about, like that, those limits sort of fall away. And I just see like that's something that you've experienced. And
Yeah. Okay. Let me talk to that guy working at the me working at my computer chasing that next paycheck. Oh,
yeah,
um, yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, I'm probably listening to podcasts and things and reading books of how to like, get rich and things like that. And in insurance sales, like how to sell and all these like techniques and
yeah,
skills, right?
yeah.
And actually they work. The techniques and the skills definitely are helpful.
Mhm.
But for me, what I've experienced running my own business in the last 8 years is that skill and technique have a ceiling.
Yeah.
And that's also part of that financial motivation. It's like you're only going to go so far in this market where people are buying, or yeah, people are buying your skill or technique or whatever you're selling.
Yeah.
If it's yourself or a product or whatever, you can only go so far. And then there's this this other value that goes beyond skill and technique that includes emotion. And this is where when you start getting into like a luxury market,
Yeah.
um, this is where price tends to uh, go all over the place. It actually doesn't have like like you can't really put a price point on something
Yeah.
when people are buying based on like a feeling or an emotion.
Yes.
Then their value of something is dependent on how, what a dollar means to them.
Right.
So when I was starting out my business, a dollar meant lunch, which was pizza at the time,
Yeah.
sleeping on couches. And now it means $15 lunch. So a dollar can be a different thing when at that level of when you're selling like an emotion, because I care about my health now and things
Yep.
like that. I'm going to spend the extra money.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that ceiling. Learning it from these other cultures and being immersed so deeply, like kind of like helps me figure out myself, and then I can understand other people a lot better. So through that, like I think I can remove financial motivation. And what I've found, the pattern that I've found is I actually attract more wealth when that's not my main goal. And,
Yes.
there's other things involved, and I'm being more true to myself or things like that.
And
But
photography is something that does that for you.
yeah, I'm trying to explain that the best I can, but
No, it was beautiful. Yeah, and so you started to kind of go there a little bit because just to kind of bring it all together, I mean, you've lived in New York, you've lived in Bhutan, you've lived in Amazon. We didn't even touch Bali, but you spent a year living in Bali, and now you're in Austin, you lived in Miami, and all of these places have different cultures. And I think for me, like, the Amazon experience is mind blowing, but the fact that you've had that and all of these other places, it's like you're witness to so many different cultures. And what I really want to find out here is how all of these different cultures have sort of shaped who you are and opened up your awareness.
let's go there. You know what? It's interesting because I maybe COVID was a very interesting time for everyone. I think we had a lot of time to reflect. For me, I went through like some other stuff, and actually, more people I talked to, not just COVID. There was all these other things in people's lives that they had to face.
Yeah.
I was extremely challenged, and I had to really look within to find any sort of peace. Like if this is my last resort. And I feel like this is the journey, the other journey that I've been trying to take for so long. I kind of realized there was a lot of things that I realized about myself, but one of the things I realized was about this person that travels so much and always wanted to do it in the first place.
Hmm.
Um, I think when I was younger, before I ever took that trip, I think I always thought I would become who I wanted to be once I was somewhere else,
Yeah.
or that maybe the a monk. I had no idea what a monk was like, but in my head I thought, oh, it's because they're living in a temple in a monastery that they are this peaceful being.
Yeah.
And I'm in a club in New York and having fun and all that, but deep down I do want that peace, that happiness. And when you see a monk, you kind of like,
Yep.
when you see it.
Yep.
And same with the shaman. I thought, oh, maybe if I go to the jungle, really, really deep, deep in the jungle, and I live with these spiritual masters, that I'll find the answer.
Yeah.
You know. So it's kind of like immersing myself in these cultures. In a way, what I was doing was going through like a process of elimination
Yes.
and finding out that you don't have to be living in a cave in a monastery somewhere. You don't have to be a generational shaman with speaking to the plants and all these things to find peace and happiness, mostly because they all have the same issues that we do. I know it sounds bizarre, but alcoholism was like an issue in the Amazon. Uh, they were like, when you're there for a week, you don't see the problems of other societies,
Yeah.
and when you're culturally immersed, you see the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities is what made me realize, oh, these people are just like me. There's like
Yes.
literally no difference.
Yes.
That process of, even in Bhutan, I still thought, the answer was somewhere else. And uh, the shaman, the answer is somewhere else. So this is my process of elimination to find out that, what, the answer is not out there. Whatever it is you're searching for, usually it's happiness, but like love, uh, your dream career, what you're supposed to do with your life. The questions I had sitting in my desk at the tech company. What am I going to do with my life? What am I supposed to do? Who am I? What is my purpose? How can I be happy? That's what was really going on in those travels. That's what I was searching for. And guess what? It's not out there. But I had to go out there to find out that it was not.
Yes. Yes. So you had to go.
Hmm.
It wasn't what you thought, and now you're
Yeah.
back. And where are we now?
Right now we're in suburban America in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
But and I have the clarity that I've always wanted, and that's man, I've been wanting that for so long.
What does that clarity look like?
I don't always have the clarity, and I
Mhm.
have to work on it constantly,
Mhm.
constantly, constantly. But uh, and well, so I'll just continue. But that it's a feeling of like knowing yourself. I know. I'm very confident and know who I am, what I'm weak at, what I'm strong at. Being honest with myself, very difficult thing to do. Surprisingly, I literally had to deal with it the other day, like when a client actually didn't love their wedding video, the first edit that I gave. I had to really like be honest with my. It's anyway. It's a work in progress,
Oh,
but having clarity on like what what my current purpose is,
yeah.
what I want to do with my life, and these are things I literally have to like have a morning ritual where I
Yeah.
remind myself of these things, that I've discovered during that COVID period, like a kind of deep reflection.
Yeah.
Um, and it gives me a lot of peace and happiness. But it's a constant work. And that's what they did in Bhutan, and that's what the shaman do. They spend time with their issues and their whether it's issues, maybe it's um, kind of like the inner workings of their mind, and spend time with it instead of ignoring it.
Spend
Like
time with it instead of ignoring it. I love that.
spend time with it.
You took a long journey around the world, but there's an inner journey as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and that is, I don't know if it's the most important one, but for right now, it's the most important one for me.
Yeah.
Just as significant as that one I took in Bhutan and the Amazon.
Yeah.
Uh, right now, this is the travel I'm on. It's like an inner adventure. It's just as exciting. It's crazy how like interesting it is in there. It's like, whoa,
When
this is
when you
like
become open to it, right?
crazy. Yeah, because it's just like walking through like a new country or like city. Like you're unraveling
Yeah.
and you're discovering new things. It sounds like a little trippy and crazy, but
No, it isn't.
trust
And
me, like it's helping me. It's helping me. Yeah.
I love it. Well, this journey that you've taken, from Bhutan to Amazon to Bali and all the places you've been in the United States, that Hollywood's going to make a movie about your life at some point. And Vincent, I want to know
Mm.
when they do, who's going to be the actor that's going to play you in this movie?
Okay. Well, I already know Tom Cruise, of
Yeah.
course.
Sweet. Okay. I love it. What's your movie going to be called?
It's a working title. Okay. It's a work in
Oh,
progress. That
It's a
one.
it's a work in
Working.
progress.
Yeah.
The
We're
work in progress,
the
starring
wo-
Tom
the
Cruise.
right, right. A
I love
journey in the works.
There
Yeah,
you go.
something like
Ooh,
that.
a journey
Oh,
in the works. There you go.
ooh.
I think you got it.
Yeah,
Push
something
through
in
it.
like that. Okay, that feels good.
There you
Yeah.
go. All right. A Journey in the
Yeah.
Works starring Tom Cruise. Vincent, thank you. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope Vincent's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or you need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire on your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Vincent, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope everyone is gonna get something, a little something out of it. Thanks.
They will for sure.